In the year 1600, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth was not merely a country, but a sprawling, continental-scale laboratory of political experimentation, cultural fusion, and economic dominance.
To understand this era, one must visualize a map that stretched from the freezing mists of the Baltic Sea down to the sun-scorched steppes near the Black Sea, covering nearly 1 million square kilometers of territory. At the heart of this behemoth sat Warsaw, a city undergoing a violent and beautiful rebirth. King Sigismund III Vasa had recently realized that the ancient capital of Krakow was too far removed from the northern political theaters of Sweden and Muscovy, and thus he turned his gaze toward this Masovian town. The transformation was seismic. The royal castle, Zamek Królewski, was expanded into a monumental pentagonal fortress that blended the defensive sternness of the north with the artistic flamboyance of the Italian Mannerist style. Its interior was a labyrinth of opulence, where the walls were covered in arrases, tapestries from the finest workshops in Arras and Brussels, and the ceilings were heavy with gold leaf. This castle was the stage for the Sejm, the most unique parliament in Europe. Imagine tens of thousands of noblemen, the Szlachta, descending upon the city. They arrived in a whirlwind of dust and steel, accompanied by private armies and retinues of servants. These men were the masters of golden liberty, a legal system that guaranteed them the right to elect their own king and the power of the liberum veto, ensuring that no law could be passed without their consent. The city's streets became a chaotic runway of Sarmatian fashion, a unique blend of East and West where Polish magnates wore silk contuche robes fastened with jeweled belts, while carrying the Karabela saber, a weapon of Persian origin. The air in Warsaw was a symphony of languages. Latin was the lingua franca of the law courts, Polish dominated the markets, Italian was the language of the court architects, and German was spoken by the guild craftsmen. The Vistula River, flowing beneath the castle's massive stone walls, was the city's lifeblood. It was choked with hundreds of scuti, flat-bottomed wooden barges that groaned under the weight of an entire nation's agricultural output. This liquid highway led directly to Gdansk, the maritime titan that functioned as the Commonwealth's window to the world. If Warsaw was the brain of the empire, Gdansk was its overflowing vault. By 1600, it was the wealthiest city on the Baltic, an autonomous republic that possessed its own military, its own coinage, and its own foreign policy. The architecture was a forest of red brick and soaring gables, built in the Dutch Mannerist style by architects like Willem van den Block. The Long Market Dugi Targ was arguably the most beautiful street in the world at the time, lined with patrician houses like the Golden House, whose facade was entirely covered in scenes of ancient history, carved in stone and gilded with real gold. The city's harbor was a forest of masts. Hundreds of ships from the Dutch Republic, England, and the Hanseatic League waited to load the Polish gold, grain, that prevented famine in Western Europe. The Great Crane, Żuraw, a massive wooden structure powered by men walking in giant hamster wheels, stood as a symbol of the city's industrial might, capable of masting ships and lifting 4-ton loads with ease. Social life in Gdansk revolved around the Artist Court, a magnificent hall where the city's elite gathered to discuss the prices of grain, salt, and spices over glasses of Goldwasser, a potent herbal liqueur filled with flakes of 22-karat gold. The city was a bastion of Protestantism and intellectual freedom, housing some of the finest printing presses in Europe, which produced scientific treatises that would have been censored elsewhere. Moving inland, the Commonwealth's power was decentralized through 5 other legendary urban centers. Krakow, the former capital, remained the spiritual and academic soul of the nation. Perched on the limestone Wawel Hill, its royal castle and cathedral held the remains of the Jagiellonian and Piast dynasties, serving as a permanent reminder of Poland's ancient glory. The Jagiellonian University was a hive of intellectual activity where the revolutionary legacy of Nicholas Copernicus was debated by scholars from across the continent. Below the castle, the Jewish district of Kazimierz was becoming one of the most important centers of Hebrew scholarship and culture in the world, with its synagogues and markets creating a vibrant city within a city. To the east, the ideal city of Zamość stood as a marvel of Renaissance logic. Built from scratch in the middle of a wilderness by Jan Zamoyski, it was designed by the Venetian architect Bernardo Mirando to be the perfect city, symmetrical, defensible, and beautiful. Its great market square was surrounded by colorful arcaded houses, and its collegiate church was a masterpiece of Mannerist architecture, reflecting Zamoyski's vision of a city that was a center for both military defense and humanist education. Lublin acted as the strategic bridge between the Kingdom of Poland and the Grand Duchy of Lithuania. It was the seat of the Crown Tribunal, the highest court of law for the nobility, and its legendary trade fairs attracted merchants from as far as Persia, Turkey, and Muscovy. During the fairs, the city turned into a global bazaar where silk carpets, Armenian horses, and French wines changed hands in a dizzying display of wealth. Torun, sitting further down the Vistula, was a Gothic masterpiece of red brick and fortified walls. As a major Hanseatic hub, it was famous for its scientific tradition and its legendary gingerbread, which was exported in ornate wooden boxes to the royal courts of Europe. Finally, Poznan in the west served as the gateway to the Holy Roman Empire. Its town hall, designed by the Italian Giovanni Battista di Quadro, was a Renaissance jewel featuring a clock with two mechanical goats that would butt heads every noon, entertaining the crowds of merchants who came to trade cloth and cattle. Protecting this vast urban network were the winged hussars, the most feared heavy cavalry in the world. Their parades through the streets of Warsaw or Krakow were a terrifying sight. They wore steel breastplates over leopard skins, and tall wooden frames attached to their backs carried eagle feathers that whistled in the wind, creating a psychological weapon that broke the spirit of their enemies long before the charge began. In 1600, these cities were not just clusters of buildings. They were the engines of a superpower that stood at the crossroads of history. They represented a society where the rule of law, for the nobility, religious tolerance, and mercantile wealth created a Sarmatian culture that was uniquely Polish-Lithuanian, a golden age of diversity, power, and architectural splendor that made the Commonwealth the envy of the 17th century world. The sheer scale of this urban network, from the Gothic spires of the north to the Renaissance arcades of the south, formed a cultural tapestry so rich and complex that it remains one of the most fascinating chapters in the history of human civilization.